Hey, I'm on the edge of my seat here, back again with another brand new video, and today I will be no-damaging all the boss fights in God of War 3, the Remastered edition on the PS4, though technically I am playing this on the PS5, but it's still a PS4 game. And there is something kind of interesting to note about playing a PS4 game on the PS5 and recording said PS4 game through the PS5, and it's that unless you have a 4K TV, the PS5's built-in recording software won't record the game at 1080p 60 FPS. The reason for this is that every time you try to screen record a game using the PS5's recording software and it's a PS4 game, the PS5's own recording software for some reason downgrades itself to the quality of the PS4's recording software. Though it's not nearly as bad as the PS4's own built-in video recording software, because that would only record games at 720p last I remember, and it couldn't do 60 FPS. But yeah, the big issue is that if you try to record this game without a 4K TV, it won't record it at 60 FPS. So I actually have to use my Elgato, my Elgato HD 60 Plus S, in order to actually record this game at 1080p 60 FPS. And I do wish I could actually talk about the strats of this boss fight, but I'm gonna be honest, I kind of forgot what they were. For these more gimmicky sections when you're hanging off the wall, you kind of just have to watch out for certain attacks, like the big beam attack this horse does. So yeah, this guy is called Hippocampi. I don't think that's how you pronounce it. You know, this dude's kind of like a big Greek, legend. You know, he's a cool horse. And I don't really know much more about that, but I will say is I love his design in God of War 3. Just Poseidon and his horses. This is such an amazing design. Also the PS5's rendering, no, PS3's rendering. Freaking just the way it looks, the water effects, the kind of rock sections of the horse, the crab legs, if those are even crab legs, which the horse can command and all that. I absolutely adore that stuff. But yeah, for the wall sections, every time it does a big crab leg attack, just kind of dodge once or twice to the left or right. And whenever it does a big beam attack, that you have to be a little bit more careful with. You kind of have to look at his animations to kind of make sure what you're looking at. And also, you can use magic to kind of iframe through certain attacks, though I wouldn't spam magic too hard. I mean, there's only a few specific attacks where you really have to use magic. And to be fair, you don't exactly have to use magic for all the attacks. There was a point in time where I thought there was one attack that was just straight up unavoidable and you had to use magic to avoid it, but there actually was a way to avoid it. However, I forgot how that works. Also, we just ripped off this horse's jaw. Its lower jaw is completely gone. To be fair, its lower jaw is a bunch of rocks, but there was blood there, so it is an actual creature. It's not just a creation of water. Maybe it is actually just a creation of water, or it's maybe just something in between. Anyways, he's back and he's ready for vengeance. And here, a big annoyance I have with this game pops up, and it's the checkpoint system. I mean, these boss fights, they get insanely epic. Look at that. It's just the scale here. Kratos is freaking tiny, yo, and the stages are freaking massive. We have Gaia here, the freaking Earth Mom, and she's getting fucked up, yo. Also, I am very surprised that this video has not been demonetized at all for graphic content, because this game is super graphic. I mean, we haven't even reached the most graphic stuff. It gets more graphic, but I don't know, I just feel this is the one video where I would be forced to have limited ads. I've had one video which actually got forced to have limited ads, and that video was one where I put I can't believe I cuffed a cheater. That song for some reason got my video to only have limited ads because that song is just too graphic and hateful. And for most of this horse's attacks, you can block them, and whenever it does that big swooping attack, or it goes 1, 2. Once you get to the 2 part, you can just kind of unleash a full combo, but every time it does 1, 2, be sure to block them. And also, if you press the block button at the exact right time, you can also parry them, because at the beginning of the game, you're pretty much fully leveled up from your last playthrough of God of War 2, so you have your parries, you have full attack, your blades are completely red. That's one thing I really love about the second game, is that, and also I think the first game, is that once you fully upgrade your weapon, your blades of Chaos, your blades of Athena, your blades of the Titans, I don't know, they changed the name of those blades, but they're the same exact blades. They go from a kind of a light orange to just an insanely vibrant red, and I just love that color so much. I'm not sure if I'm that big of a fan of the color of the new blades, the Blades of Exile or whatever. They're more a bright orange by the end when they're fully upgraded, and I just prefer the stark red. I mean, I don't like red in certain places, but here I really think red works out super well. Alright, so the one attack which I thought was unavoidable without magic is the one where the horse kind of does a big jump. It goes like, you know, it starts stretching up, you know, stretching its claws out, like, you know, it's trying to like stretch out its limbs, you know, like whenever you're in a stretching class and tell you to like reach as high as like the ceiling, that's what like the horse is doing, and it's about to do that and just kind of straight come down. I thought that attack was unavoidable, but there is a way to avoid it, and if memory serves me right, the way you do avoid it is by getting really far away from like the horse and jumping. You have to jump. You can't stay on the ground because it's a ground pound attack, and like the earthquake damages you actually. Also, for this next fight, I actually redid my previous horse fight, but you know, not by doing no damage, but by doing no magic, because I need all my magic for this part where I fight Poseidon. Also, this is really cool. Look at this.
You challenge me, mortal? A god of Olympus?
Dude, that voice sounds so cool. The effects, just the voice acting, his introduction, his model. This is like one of the best designs for Poseidon I have ever seen. Just, I absolutely adore it. It's so cool with all his horses, like the water and the claws he puts on there. And you're going to see that there's kind of like a fade to black here, and that's because I restarted from a checkpoint. In the first phase of this fight, if you restart from a checkpoint, you restart from the first phase of this fight. And the way I kind of do this is by attacking the claws. If he does the electricity attack, I just kind of like avoid it with some iframes, and then like after that, I actually try to avoid it by dodging it. And in the first phase, he only does one lightning attack, so you know, once he does that one lightning attack, you avoid it, and then it's gone. But another attack you can do is by summoning the claws, and you kind of have to dodge those claws. They can be really deadly. The timing for that can be a bit dangerous. However, I have to mention a negative of this fight, no more positivity. The checkpoint system. So the way I like to no damage these fights is by doing them all in one go, and you know, the way I would do this all in one go is by doing the first, second, and third phase all in one go, right? However, if I fail the second phase, if I restart a checkpoint, it's just going to restart me from the second phase here, not the first phase. So I actually have to quit the game and reload a save point. But if I do that, I have to repeat the entire second fight with Hippocampi. So every time I've screwed up here, I had to do Hippocampi again. I had to do like the whole part of the level to get to Poseidon again. I have to rewatch that cutscene over and over again. To be fair, this cutscene is like briefly, like this cutscene's pretty brief compared to some of the future ones. So I'm not too mad about the cutscene. I'm just mad that, like, you know, we've only spent like a straight less than a minute in that first phase, so why do we need a checkpoint on the second phase? And to be fair, Poseidon here is kind of like the tutorial fight and all that, so, you know, it's kind of like one of the first things the player does, so, you know, you gotta be a bit forgiving for that, but like, it's not even that hard. You know, you have like the first phase, you know, once you learn how to deal with that, you know, we can do the second phase, and you know, if we fail the second phase, then we'll just restart from the first phase. And it's not like the cutscenes in between phases are that long. I mean, some of the future fights, the cutscenes can get a little ridiculous, but here it's like alright, you know, like Gaia, she freaking punches him into a wall. Like, I mean, that's pretty brief. It's like, what, 10-15 seconds, a little less? Like, I mean, it's nothing too bad. Oh yeah, like his attacks are pretty simplistic, but you should keep in mind how they work. So he has that little punch he does there. You can block that. There's two versions of the little stabby thing he can do there, and they kind of like, they're a bit wonky in how to deal with him. For that one he did right there, what I like to do is kind of combo him and then do like my big attack to iframe through it. However, it's inconsistent. Sometimes when I do that big attack to iframe to it, he'll stab it in a way where it actually hits me after I'm done doing my iframe magic attack. So, you know, it's a little bit of a RNG, like, you know, loose cannon sort of thing or strat to do. So, you know, be careful with that. If you're trying to like copy what I just did there, it may not work, and I'm sorry about that. But the other one he does where he kind of grabs his spear trident or whatever, and like he freaking slams into the ground, you know, like just like with the horseman, he's like stretching his whole body up and he's trying to like reach the ceiling, where like his like midriff area is like stretching in a really weird way. That attack, you can't really like try to attack him. There's just no way to attack him and like do no damage. You have to avoid it completely and just kind of wait for him to be done with that. However, one positive is that once he is done with that, you're free to do a full combo with a heavy attack. Where there's other attacks, doing a heavy attack doesn't really work out, because when you do a heavy attack, you can't like dodge out of that immediately. However, if you just stick to light attacks, you can dodge out of it immediately. So unless he does that big attack, it's best to just do light attacks the entire time, because if you don't, then you won't be able to dodge at the exact right time and you'll get clipped. And for this third phase, he gets a little bit more complicated with his lightning attacks. You know, he does like 2 rounds of them, so, you know, one lightning attack and then the second lightning attack. And, you know, you can use magic at the right time to do certain things, but yeah, the reason I have full magic here, despite, you know, using magic in the previous fight, is because I redid the fight just to get to this guy. and I had to redo that fight a whole bunch of times because I kept like messing up on Poseidon on really small details and stuff. And yeah, this game has a split between like in-engine cutscenes and pre-rendered cutscenes. And you know, the thing with pre-rendered cutscenes is that it allows you to do more. I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know that much about game design, but I'm assuming that there's just certain things that are just too complicated to do in-engine. So pre-rendered can kind of take like, you know, I mean, they're still hard to do, but, you know, it can kind of take the weight off the engine all the time. But they don't age as gracefully, because I'm assuming these pre-rendered cutscenes were rendered at 720p. And this is a remaster of the PS3 game. And to be fair, there is a bit of a complication with what constitutes a remaster, remake. I don't know. They're always throwing those terms around, and they're always using them in different ways. But for the case of God of War 3 Remastered, it's just the exact same game as the PS3 one, but it runs at 1080p, 60 FPS. And there's an interesting thing about God of War 3 on the PS3 is that it didn't run exactly at 30 FPS. It ran at this weird in-between frame rate of like 45 FPS, which is kind of strange. Not that many games do that, but it was like 720p, 45 like FPS. And it's an amazing looking game. Like, I don't know, the God of War game is just like so visually striking and just some of the best looking games of their generations. And to be fair, with that modern reboot, they're still keeping that up. They're still some of the best looking games of like their whole generations. Just really great stuff. So I'm going to keep talking about how good the graphics look, but first I just want to mention that this part, there's a frame in here which is in a very infamous video involving God of War and Kid Icarus, and just type that into the YouTube search bar, you will find a video. That is one of the most aggressive videos of all time. It's fucking scary. But yeah, like, I mean, something I wanted to mention about the art style. Anyways, he's gouging his eyes out. I mean, I'm kind of interested why YouTube is okay with it now. Like, I guess YouTube has just kind of grown up, you know, like, because back then you would have gotten limited ads for that. But now, I guess, you know, they're chilling with it. And God of War's gotten a lot more popular. So, you know, you can't hurt the users that much. And oh, I was going to mention something about the art style. Anyways, we're at the Hades fight, and I have a bit of a controversial statement, I think. But Hades, I believe he's probably the best boss fight in this game by far. And it's just kind of sad that he's like the second real boss fight in the game, and he's the best one. We've kind of peaked here. Like, the next couple fights aren't going to be as good, in my opinion. So for this first phase, what I do is, he pretty much has two attacks. He has the stomp, and he has like his chains. So for the chains, you can parry it, and then after you parry it, you do like the block, like light attack move, which does a big circle, and that big circle is always gonna like push him back, like ugh. And whenever he does the foot, you dodge away from the foot, and in order to keep like your combo meter going, just shoot him with arrows. There's no need to have a high, like, you know, hit counter. It's just there to be cool. And then, you know, once you hit him enough times, usually around like 70 or 80 hits is good. He'll go to his second phase, and in his second phase, he pretty much just stands at the door here the entire time, and he has a bunch of new attacks. That's a grab. Whenever he does that, he's gonna grab you, dodge back, and now he's changed up the timing of like his chain swipes, because back then I could parry the first chain swipe, and then like the second wouldn't hit me, but this time he's made his like chain swings. I was saying swipes. They're more swings. He's made them slower, so even if you parry the first one, you still have to parry the second one, because if you don't, it will hit you. So instead of like parrying them, I just decide to block both of them. So I kind of changed up my strat there. And there's a bunch of other attacks he does, but for this phase of the fight, you have to watch out for those hands. It can kind of clip you at bad times, but as long as you're just kind of doing like a light, heavy towards the direction of like his breastplate, it's not even a plate, it's just his straight up breast, you know, like his chesticle. You just rip it off and then you tear it off, and then we're fighting Hades. Also, Hades is voiced by the same guy who voiced Mr. Krabs, so, you know, do with that information what you will. This phase is probably my least favorite in this entire fight, because whenever he does the stomp, he immediately does another attack. So pretty much you can parry that, and then he'll do another chain, parry that, and it's very, very aggressive. And also, I don't know what it is, but I think his stomp is slightly modified to be faster, because I don't know, I've just had so many times where I dodge away from the stomp and it hits me. So I think dodging the stomp is kind of like its own trial, and I don't really know how to explain it. It's just a pain in the ass. You kind of have to get like the muscle memory for dodging that stomp in the exact way you have to dodge that stomp. But he pretty much has like 3 attacks. He has the stomp, and every time he does the stomp, he will immediately do the one chain attack that goes super fast down. Like, it is different from like the chain swing. It's like a different type of chain attack. And then whenever he does like the chain swing, you know, the one we're like, you know, familiar with. Anyways, whenever he does that attack, dodge to the left or right. It's kind of like a... And also for this final phase here, no, not the final phase, but the fourth phase, he summons these skulls. And honestly, the skull attack is really easy to deal with. You just kind of like combo on him whenever the skulls get into like your general vicinity. Parry the skulls or block them, and if you parry them, you can shoot them back at him. And yeah, and look at that! Wow, we're pretty much almost done with this guy. And one attack which he could do, but he never does, is that he'll swing like his blades across the floor, like it's a game of like jump rope. And whenever he does that, something which I really love to do is just jump and do like the jumping spinning attack. You know, you jump, you block, and press the light attack, and you just go like a helicopter. And I just spam that attack, and like I do insane damage on the guy that way. And you gotta have to time it right, because sometimes if you're like jumping, he'll swing the blades up instead of swinging them across the ground, but there is a way to kind of manipulate him to doing a certain thing, and there is kind of a way to read his patterns so that you can just like endlessly combo on him. But there is like a sharp timing to it, but I kind of forgot exactly how to explain that sharp timing. This phase sucks because I've messed it up so many times, dude. It's kind of a simple mess up, so what I like to do is I shoot some arrows at him, and then I kind of spam my magic, and most of the time that would kill him. But he decides to kind of activate his iframes like super early by doing the big attack again. So I kind of saved myself by immediately dodging out of the way and just, you know, continuing the rest of that phase with arrows, and then we're done here. And this phase, I also hate this phase. I mean, this is my favorite fight in the game, but I just hate some of these phases because I've gotten clipped so many times at like the last second. So, you know, if I get clipped here, I have to redo the entire thing over again. Though I will praise this fight for one thing. Its checkpoints are nowhere near as like babyish as... Like the checkpoints in this fight don't baby you nearly as hard as some of the checkpoints in like the earlier and future fights. So for those first 4 phases, there are no checkpoints. The game fully expects you to, you know, beat them, you know, like to deal with it. But once you reach this point of the fight, there is a checkpoint, and like that's kind of understandable because, you know, this is kind of more of a gimmick section. So like, you know, whatever. If you die here, you know, it is kind of weird. And what you're noticing is I am falling into this pit a lot, and that's because I've gotten clipped so many times, because like sometimes when he does like the left and right swinging attack, I think it's the one where he just slams you, like, you know, he just slams his thing down 3 times, so I kind of like my dodging timing is a little off, so I get clipped that way. And something you could do to avoid falling into that pit over and over again is to, you know, kind of, you know, step back a bit. But that kind of like messed me up sometimes, because while I'm stepping back, he'll prepare an attack I don't expect, and I get clipped. So instead of like dedicating my brain power to, you know, thinking, hey, at what point am I going to step back? Instead, I just completely ignore that and just smash the attack button. So, you know, it's like less thinking for me and just more convenient for me, because I rather spam the get up button, you know, to get up from like falling into that pit over and over again, instead of having to like negotiate, should I step back, should I dodge, because that's just screwed me over way too many times, and you know, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm just gonna kind of go from here. Anyways, here's the final phase of the fight, and this phase is easy, but there are things you have to keep in mind, or you might get clipped and you might regret your entire life choices, because this fight took me like straight up 3 to 4 days to no damage, just because I kept getting clipped at the final part or the 3rd part or the 4th part. Just like, ooh, it was an infuriating process. I mean, I am happy. This is like the proudest I am of a fight I've no damaged in this video, because I think I did do it really stylishly for the tools you're given here. Like for some of the future fights, you get more tools, and I'm not sure if I did it in the most stylish way possible, just because there are some God of War YouTubers who are just absolutely cracked at this game in a way that I don't think I could ever do, because I have a bit of a skill issue. But for this fight, I'm really proud of the way I handled it. But yeah, something that's really important to mention is that through all my attempts where I'm trying to no damage this guy, I actually got like a fucking headache, like an actual throbbing, painful headache, just from all the times I tried to no damage this guy. So I'm just playing this game and my head just aches. It hurts so much just because I have to play this fight so many times. It's just kind of like, at that point, I frankly should have just stopped playing. So like the strategy here is just to like spam light attacks and, you know, avoid his attacks. And whenever he does that attack, you have to swing over to the other side of the stage. But for every single other attack, you don't have to do that. But you have to keep something in mind about his big two-arm attack. Pretty much like whenever he does like the big 2-arm slam, you have to stay on the right side, because that's the only side that's safe. If you stay on the left side, and like, you know, if you stay like completely on the left, you know, like the leftiest left, and he does like the big 2-arm attack, it's still going to hit you. The right side is the only side that's safe. And I took damage because I didn't know that. So, you know, I'm just saying, it's like, you know, you went through like an entire 9 to 10 minute fight, and then you lose because you didn't know that the left side wasn't safe, but the right side is. Like, it's just like, that sort of shit is so fucking annoying. Like, believe me. It was infuriating. Then I was like, okay, guess we'll have to do 10, 30 more attempts before I actually get the attempt, which, you know, is good. It's like, fucking hell, man. Like I'm telling you, it's so infuriating. But the one thing I really like about this fight is that it's just a continuous fight. There's no like real big interruptions like some of the future fights. You know, like for like freaking the final boss fight, you know, you have like the first phase, then you have like a 10-minute cutscene in between, and it's like the second phase, and then after the second phase, there's like a bit of a cutscene in between to the third phase, and it's just like, at that point, that's not one fight, that's just like 3 separated fights. But for Hades, you have like 5 phases, and it's all one fight. I like that. I wish more of the other fights would kind of be like that. Anyways, this fight isn't really so much a fight as it is just kind of a little like puzzly, gimmicky combat scenario. And it's just kind of like, Helios is not a boss fight. I mean, you just saw him. They introduced him, and he has no freaking legs, man. Like, he can't fight you. He has some soldiers, and, you know, they'll do something. But you kind of have to just wait for, like, this big Cyclops creature to step in. And, oh, he actually is a Cyclops. I was actually kind of worried if he was a Cyclops or not, because there is another enemy that's also extremely massive, and they may also be a Cyclops. And did you see that my footage just kind of stuttered there? That's my Elgato just, like, kind of, you know, failing a bit. You know, that's not like me editing the footage, because I do edit this footage sometimes, you know, like whenever I want to include like a big intro, but my actual fight is restarted from a checkpoint, you know, I'll kind of edit it in a way for it to be kind of seamlessly transitionary from there. And also, let me mention something about the Hades fight, which I forgot to mention. So, like I mentioned before, this game has in-engine cutscenes and then pre-rendered cutscenes. But for the pre-rendered cutscene for when Hades dies, it had no audio when I did my no damage attempt. Like, I don't show that part of the clip, but you can kind of hear the audio cut off when you're watching my no commentary version. Like, that wasn't an effect that I added. That was actually like the game's audio just completely shutting off. Though Fade to Black, though, is an effect which I added. So pretty much the way you handle this is you pretty much, you know, you beat up the Cyclops to the point where you can, like, you know, control the Cyclops, then you kill as many enemies as possible, then you kill the Cyclops, and then you have to kill any enemies that are remaining, and that's like the whole fight. And then there's like a little gimmicky part where you have to block like Helios's light, and, you know, you just kind of do that. And yeah, you can kind of just kill the guys with the shields immediately. You don't have to like kill the guys who spawn in like after the people with shields. You just kill the guys with shields, and yeah, the other guys will spawn in, but you'll be able to kill off most of them anyway, so, you know, whatever. So there was something else I wanted to mention. I forget what. It may have been involved with Hades. Oh yeah, the weapon you get from Hades. So it has an official name, but I'm just going to call it like the Hades Claws. So the Hades Claws, the reason I use it to fight the Cyclops is because you can pretty much like dodge instantly out of any light attack, which isn't, you can do that with like the Blades of Chaos, but it's a bit of a slower, there's a bit more of a delay, because, you know, you do a big roll, and it's kind of like a pre-dedicated roll, while with the Blades of like Hades, you know, the Hades Blade, the Hades Claws, one of those names, whenever you dodge, you just dodge immediately. You know, you like shoot your blades in the direction you're dodging, and you dodge, and you can just keep doing that in a way that's like much faster than dodging with the Blades of Chaos or the Blades of Athena, the Blades of Exile. They're blades, they're the orange blades. So yeah, here's a little gimmicky part. You kind of control the stick to control your arm, and you move forward, and whenever you're blocking the light, you move forward. You don't have to like use the stick to move forward, you just automatically move forward. And here we're gonna get one of the most brutal sections in the game. It's just like, dude, you do not want someone to do that to your face. But I mean, Helios, you know, he freaking shot a fireball at us. In fact, I don't even know what Helios did against, well, yes he did. There's like a little combat section you do before you get here, and he's shooting fireballs at you, so he was already against you. And he also tries to kill you by lying to you, by telling you that the flame that instantly kills you if you touch it requires you to enter it, and, you know, that's just isn't gonna go well. Also, something else I wanted to mention about the art style is, so like the first 2 games adopted a bit more of a cartoony style, in the sense of, like, I mean, it's the PS2, you know, like, I mean, it has like the processing power of like a toaster, but, you know, we're not going to be able to render like the intricate pores of every single character. So instead of like adopting that sort of style, it's kind of easier to adopt more of like a painterly style, and it looks great for the first 2 games. You know, God of War 2 has just some absolutely beautiful environments, but for the 3rd game, they kind of went more in that, like, you know, detailing every single pore of like each character. You know, Kratos has like these very detailed pores on his face. So it is leaning more towards realism, but it is still heavily stylized. And I'll talk more about that after I'm done talking about Hermes here. So Hermes is a boss fight in a sense, but he's just such a like a little bitch boss fight. See, you kind of have to fight fire with this guy. And since Hermes is fighting like a little bitch, you also kind of have to fight like a little bitch to no damage. So I mean, I kind of did some magic at the beginning there, you know, like, I mean, once he was immediately in my area, because the way he attacks you is just by being in contact with you, and since he runs really fast, once he's, like, in the general direction of, like, 2 feet away from you, you have to, like, immediately, like, dodge it, or immediately do, like, the big magic attack. And once you run out of magic, I'm going to use the Hades claws in order to... So here I was kind of getting lucky just by kind of doing a few swipes while he went past me. But now, what you ideally want to do is get to a point where your heavy attack lands, but he doesn't move away because you're too far away from him for him to actually start running. Because, you know, the way he like kind of fights is that once you get close to him, he starts running at you. But if you stay far away enough from him, you can kind of keep spamming these heavy attacks, and that's how you do the fight, and that's pretty much the entire fight. And then you get a really brutal section where you just cut off his legs, and that's that. So yeah, I like to call back to an earlier moment in the game. It's not going to appear in this video. It's like a cutscene where like Kratos meets with Athena in hell, and like, okay, here's like my best Athena and Kratos impression. So like Athena is like, "I've missed you, Kratos," while Kratos is like, "Well, I don't." Nice try. Like, it's like he wants to be edgy and like hateful, but he's still like nervous to talk to girls or something. Like, it's just a really weird comedic moment because like a lot of this game is so like serious and angry and then like you have those weird little moments of comedy. Like there's this one part where he's talking with like fuck it, how do you pronounce that name? Like the Smith God. I hate those QTEs so much. The one where they have to like swing the stick around, especially for like the enemies where, you know, it's like really fast and you have to like do it really quickly. Like the way I do those sort of QTEs is like, you know how it's like swinging in one direction, you know, like from the bottom, and then you kind of swing around to the top from the right. So pretty much what I do is I hold the stick down, you know, if I'm swinging to the, like, if I'm swinging upwards, I hold the stick down, and then I kind of swing it around that way. It's really easy to mess up those type of QTEs. It's just like, why are you here? Like, I mean, to be fair, QTEs are kind of annoying on their own, but like that specific QTE with the stick, just awful. Absolutely despise that sort of stuff. Like, get out of here with that. But yeah, hepatitis, you know, whatever his name is, however you say it, there's one part where he just says like something and he doesn't tell Kratos anything useful, and then Kratos is like, well, you certainly were useful, and he does this big exaggerated arm motion. It's so silly. Also, there's a little part where he goes up to Hermes like, I do not have time to swat a fly from the ass of Zeus. And then here, he's a little fly, and he freaking swats him off. You know, it's a little callback. Ain't that cute? Anyways, here we're back to fighting an actual boss fight, and I'm here back again with some negativity. And so this is another fight, kind of like Hades. And you know what's fun? Like, the past 4 fights, all their names start with H. Hades, Helios, Hermes, Hercules. Like, I don't know what they were on with that, but it's really cute. I like that they all start with H. So anyways, just like Hades, Hercules is one straight fight with 5 phases. However, for some reason, the checkpoints didn't like check up on that, because like after the first phase of the Hercules fight, it just starts you off like at the second phase if you restart a checkpoint. So, and it's just weird because the first phase of Hercules fight, if you play it right, is shorter than the first phase of Hades fight. But in Hades fight, you actually have to do all 4 of those phases, you know, and the checkpoints at the first phase. While here, there's a checkpoint for every new phase of the fight, and it just makes things irritating because every time I want to restart from the first phase, if I mess up in the second, third, or fourth, or fifth phase of the Hercules fight, I have to reload a save point. And thankfully the save point is right before the fight, but every time I have to do this fight, I have to rewatch this cutscene over and over and over again. And the length of this cutscene is kind of overstaying its welcome, because this isn't even the full cutscene. There's like a whole extended like minute-long part with Hera, and then, you know, she's talking about blah blah blah, and then Hercules comes in and he goes blah blah blah, and okay, we start the fight off. We have to grab an enemy immediately. We have to like kind of throw him over here, and like here's the annoying part. The reason I don't like this fight as much as the Hades one is because, number one, you have to fight a bunch of goons, and just fighting goons in the middle of a boss fight is just kind of like, ugh, what are we doing here? So the first phase, it's just the goons. So you kind of kill off the goons. You know, you can use some combos here and there, but like the tackle move is one of the most useful moves in the game because you're just completely invincible when you're doing this. So you know, you just kind of grab an enemy, you do that. Like especially even if you're fighting like a stronger character, which you can't like grab like this. If you just grab one of the weaker ones, just kind of like slam yourself into the stronger enemy, you deal a good amount of damage. And that is a strategy I will be using against Hercules. So like that's one reason why I don't like this fight as much as Hades, because you know Hades is just like a straight one-on-one. I like that. I like my one-on-one fights. But then for Hercules, most of this fight is just more a fight with the goons than it is with Hercules. And then the second reason why I don't like this fight nearly as much as Hades is because Hercules is not fun to fight. Like, you know, you hit him once or twice, and then after that, he just immediately blocks the rest of your attacks or counters you. It's just like, it's not fun. I can't do any, like, fun combos with this guy. I mean, you could do, like, some insane combos. Oh, yeah, but one of the most irritating things about this fight is that Hercules has this one attack. You know, Hercules is, like, a really charismatic guy. So at some point during the fight, he'll just tell the rest of his goons, he'll just, like, get up, you know, he'll, like, summon, like, he'll suck his breath in, you know, he'll summon in his vigor, and he'll go, "Soldiers! Make sure that that man's cock is not left unsucked." And these fucking idiots, these fucking, like, disgusting creatures just start crowding around you, like, just trying to, they start grabbing your balls as fast as possible. They're fucking quick with it, too. Like, it's like half a frame, they're already on you. And, like, once they grab you, once you're, like, in that grab attack from, like, the enemies, you immediately start taking damage, even if, like, it's one guy. I mean, to be fair, actually, if it's one guy, you don't take damage. But once it's two guys, you start taking damage. It's just so irritating because it happens so fast. You know, like, they were already gearing up for it. You know, he just points his, like, dumb little lion fist. Okay, I said dumb little lion fist. It's not a dumb little lion fist. Those lion fists are sick as hell. And they're one of the best weapons in the game. They're probably... no, I wouldn't say they're the best weapon in the game, but they're one of the best weapons in the game, and they're just sick. And also, it's like the only weapon that's not like a Blades of Exile copy. Like, you know, I mean, I love that all the weapons are kind of like Blades of Exile copies and with, like, you know, their own gimmick, because like that's more fun than some of the stuff in the earlier games. But they are just kind of copies, you know. So it is kind of nice that we have like the one punching weapon that. Yeah, it's like a punching weapon. It's not like a chain weapon. Oh yeah, but there's something really important to mention about my strategy here. So like in his second phase, you know, I kind of do magic and that immediately takes him out. But in his third phase, he has a lot more health and I don't have that much magic. So I use the enemy tackle to pretty much like deal damage to Hercules. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that you can't exactly, like, you know, continue tackling him. You can't end your tackle by being close to Hercules. You kind of have to, like, tackle him and then tackle away from him, because a lot of the time he'll do an attack and, like, after, you know, you're done with your tackle and that attack will hit you. Kind of like the big ground pound attack. So, you know, you kind of have to be strategic with the way you tackle him. And also, like, once you're done with your tackle, you also have to be aware of the enemy positioning. And now we're in the fourth phase, I believe, and just, I'm telling you, fighting this guy is not that fun. You know, you do, like, 1 or 2 hits, and then he's doing an attack you have to dodge away from, or he blocks you, or he does the big counter attack, and you kind of have to, like, shoot arrows at him to kind of, like, bait out that counter attack, because you do not want him to counter your attack and, like, be too close to him, because if you're too close to him, his attack will, like, even if you dodge away, like, his attack will, like, reach across the room and hit you. It's just really, really weird stuff, you know, so it's just... This phase is going to take a while. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of tedious to watch. There might have been a more stylish way to do this, but I'm not that guy. I am not that guy, believe me. So to get back to the art style, the reason I kind of wanted to mention the differences is because while I still think this game looks amazing, in some ways, like in the next 10 or 20 years, it might age worse than God of War 2, but I don't even know if that's true. I'm kind of like capping here, kind of like I need to replay God of War 2 in order to have a full opinion on that, you know, like I've seen a couple YouTube clips and I'm just kind of like, you know, maybe that looks a little nicer than 3, and like I think one reason I'm thinking about it is because the environments in 3 are a lot more depressing than the environments in 2, because like the environments in the first 2 games, you know, they're a lot more colorful, you know, like they're just like a lot more vibrant, a lot more painterly, while in 3 everything is dying, you know, like I mean we're in a depressive era. Kratos, you know, I can actually pronounce the name Kratos. I can't pronounce some of these other names, but Kratos is one which I must know how to pronounce. Kratos is like killing all the gods, and like every time he kills one god, something dies. He kills Poseidon, the sea swallows the lands. You know, he kills Hera, all the plants start rotting, and it's just... He kills Hermes, like a bunch of flies start eating everyone. You know, he kills Helios, the sun goes away. You know, we're in a depressive state. It just rain everywhere. Everything's gray. gray, brown, rotting, dead. You know, you go to hell, it's not like a vibrant red anymore. It's gray, it's muddy, it's slightly purple. You know what I'm saying? Like, things are depressing, and you know, honestly, the depressive environments still look beautiful, but I guess there is something kind of missing to it. But there is still some amazing vistas here, like, so don't get me wrong. I love the way 3 looks. It's just kind of like a bit of a weird, nitpicky, conceptual thing I was thinking about. And in order to fully conceptualize what I'm thinking about, I kind of need to replay God of War 2, because like God of War 3's art style and like just visuals have things which the first 2 games don't have. For one, it has like some stylistic flourishes which are not in the first 2 games. Like whenever you equip like the, you know, the big infinity blade, like the big blue blade, the big blue sword, it has a name, but I forgot what it was called exactly. Like the Olympus blade or whatever. Whenever you equip that blade in this game, like the color scheme changes drastically and it looks beautiful. I love the way that looks. And there's this one part near the end of the game where you're traveling in like the chaos realm or whatever the hell. It's like a big internal thing. Whenever you travel there, it's like completely blacked out. It's like a minimalistic art style sort of thing. You know, like color is like highly like insensualized. That's not how you say it. However you say that word, I think that looks beautiful, and it's something which the first 2 games don't have. And also, the animations here are a lot more brutal, especially during the QTE sequences. So, one thing which I don't like about those first 2 games, like the QTE sequences, sometimes it just kind of feels like you're pressing the QTE buttons, and you know, it's just playing out this big floaty little movie. While here, whenever you do like the QTEs, it's a lot more like the Yakuza games where, you know, like the QTEs are so well integrated into like the combat that, well, I don't think it's as well integrated as like some of the best stuff in Yakuza, but whenever you press like a QTE button, it feels brutal. It feels like and like it doesn't always feel like that in the first 2 games. So that is something important to mention. You know, the animation quality is part of the visuals, so I just thought I should mention that. Though one thing which hasn't aged as gracefully is some of the facial animation in 3. Though it's not like the facial animations in 1 and 2 are that good. So I mean, they're kind of on an equal playing field there. But yeah, like some of the facial animations can look a little bit uncanny at points, but not uncanny in the way that, say, some of the PS4 like mocap games can look. Because like some of the mocapping in like some games, like, you know, the game Until Dawn, that game can look a bit uncanny, and like some of the facial animations in this game don't look uncanny in that sense, but they could be a little bit like rigid, I don't know, in the way they like move their eyes or like their mouth. And I just thought that's worth mentioning. So now we're in the 5th phase, and this phase has a bit of a random element to it. Because there was one time where I beat this phase by just punching him endlessly, and he never did any of these attacks. Like, it didn't last nearly as long as it lasts here. But sometimes it'll last this long, and the way you do this is just by punching him a whole ball. He has like a bunch of grabbing attacks, you know, he has punching attacks. And I'm dodging like his grabbing attacks and like his punching attacks. You know, he'll do like 1 punch, he'll do 2 punch. And it's not too hard, though you could mess it up. And I forget if I mess it up or not. And then it comes to this big point where he does the big QT, and then the fight's over, and it's just like, yeah. So there's some things I wanted to mention, but I kind of have them jotted down in my outline. So let me just, let me go through that real quick. So yeah, you get like little red orbs, you know, like at the start. You know, every time you defeat an enemy, you get red orbs to kind of upgrade your weapons, but at the very start, you get a very small amount. Like, you'll struggle to get even like 2,000 orbs throughout your playthrough, but then once you start reaching the end of the game, you get to a point where you're just getting a whole bunch of orbs, and you get to the point where you kind of upgrade nearly every single weapon. Though I will say, by the end of my Chaos playthrough, I was not able to upgrade every single weapon. Like, I did not upgrade like my green blades like at all, and it's kind of a shame. I don't even use them in this video, so it is a shame, because that weapon is one of the most insane weapons for doing like combo mads. And like, it's not like I do combo mads, I'm not that good. But there are some YouTubers who do combo mads, and I have to shout them out. There were like a bunch of God of War YouTubers. I'm going to put their channel links in the description, which you need to check out. All those channels aren't fully focused on God of War, but most of them are, and they are absolutely cracked at it. So the thing about this Cronos fight is that if he rubs his fingers just slightly, you know, like left and right, Kratos would be dead, but he doesn't do that, and that's really funny. So I have mentioned that like for some of these fights I would restart a checkpoint, and you know, if it starts me at the first phase of the fight, that's good. But for this fight, restarting a checkpoint is just not an option whatsoever, because it would just make the fight too awkward. Because, you know, I mean, I restart the checkpoint here, and then like there'd be like a fade to black, and it's like, what happened to that whole beginning cutscene? So it's just, I have to reload the save every time I like fail in this fight, because another thing is that even if I like, you know, restart a checkpoint just from like the first phase of the fight, like there's checkpoints all over this place, just because this isn't really a boss fight. It's just a straight up level where you fight enemies, because Cronos is just too big to fight one-on-one. So you're just kind of chilling around, like climbing around, and it's just like, he's like, oh, what are you doing, Kratos? Where could you be? Oh. So, you know, you kind of fight the goons there, and I use the blades of Hades, because pretty much like the light heavy attack and the light heavy attack are really nice, and they cover a big range, so you can kind of just get all the enemies there. And then once he kind of does the big thing where he, you know, the camera zooms out, you can't see anything, go to like the top of his arm, and then here for this part can be a little random, but every time he's gonna do the big attack, and whenever he does that, you know, kind of summon the enemies to get killed there, and then you kind of, if there's an enemy over here, kind of, you know, kill him there. And what you want to happen is that you want him to stick his thumbs down on his arm, but sometimes he doesn't do that. Sometimes he'll just do the thing where he either goes or he does the thing where he punches his arm for some reason. You know, like, it's just a weird thing to think about. Like, what is he doing? Like, bro, just freaking slam him. I mean, to be fair, he tries to slam him at another point, but every time he does that attack, you kind of do the air dodge. The air dodge covers a ton of distance, and it kind of gets you far away from the attack. You know, if I keep doing the thing, I'm gonna get the hiccups, and thankfully I have not gotten the hiccups yet. But the thing I hate about this part is that, you know, once he finally like puts his fingers down, there kind of comes a point where there's too many enemies around you when you're trying to like punch his fingers. The enemy's gonna clip you, or sometimes you kind of have to like play in a way where the enemy doesn't clip you. And, you know, I got really lucky there where I was able to like kind of like rip off his fingernail, and like the first 2 times he slams his like fingers down. But sometimes that doesn't happen because there's too many enemies, so, you know, you have to like manage the enemies and goons, and that can be a bit annoying. And then at this point, you have to wait for him to slam his hand down on you, and there's gonna be a big shadow, and then you climb on his fingers. And I have to mention that his fingers have a really weird hitbox, and sometimes like when you're trying to like jump up, do you see how I'm trying to jump up and it doesn't jump up? It just happens, and it's just really strange and bad, and I don't like it. And sometimes there's like enemies on top of his fingers, so I don't even climb up. I like wait for Cronos to just go to like knock out any enemies on top of his fingers. So sometimes I climb up and the enemies clip me, and then here the enemy just kind of spawns in. So sometimes I like jump up without realizing that there's an enemy there, and I get clipped, and I hate that. In fact, I'm actually going to do this right now, but I get so lucky that the enemy attack just misses me. I kind of forgot that there was going to be an enemy there because I was just kind of rushing it, and thankfully I rushed it so fast that the enemy didn't get me. But you're supposed to kill that enemy first before, like, you know, going up there. But I guess I kind of went for a little speedrun. And then this part here, this part is hard. So here I'm going to do like a little full combo on this guy before going for my normal strat, which is to, I'm going to use a bit of magic here. I'm going to use my magic here to kind of make things easier, because I'm not going to use magic at any other point in this fight. Though, to be fair, some magic at a later point would have been helpful, but, you know, whatever. Magic here is like the best time to use it. And, oh yeah, I went into this fight unprepared. Like, I used up too much magic in some of the previous sections, so I can't use all of my magic. So, you know, using magic twice at this point would have been the good thing to do, and if I actually had a full bar of magic, I would have been able to use more magic at other points. And, you know, you have to dodge the big hammer attacks, you have to dodge enemies like grabbing you, and, you know, the magic definitely helped like kind of whittle these guys down to size. You know, I'm using like the enemy, you know, tackle in order to like defeat these guys, while also, you know, having complete invincibility, and it's just, you know, it's crazy like that. And it's just like, I have to do this entire level without taking damage. You know, it's like those long battles in Yakuza. You know, they're weak enemies, but they can clip you out of nowhere, and it just kind of ruins everything. It's like, ooh. And then like the camera, you know, I love how epic it is, but sometimes it gets so far away that it completely screws you up because you're too tiny. You can't see what you're doing. Sometimes you get clipped and you don't even know where you got clipped from. And like this next section that's about to come up is going to be insane for that. So, you know, the crystal, you kind of hit it, but you can't really destroy it at the moment. So here I'm gonna just gonna completely mow through these enemies, because I do not want that many enemies for the next section, because the less enemies there are, the better. Though, to be fair, I think there are a lot more enemies on his hand than there were on that stage. And what you're gonna do is jump up immediately, and then jump to the left to avoid the enemy's attack. You have to do this immediately. And then what I like to do is do heavy attacks across the field, and then jump to the right, heavy attacks across the field, jump to the right. This won't always work. Sometimes the enemy will clip you, and then, you know, have some enemies to deal with once you're on his hand. This part isn't so bad, but that beginning section is absolute hell, and I hate it. It's RNG based, kind of, and it's just such a nasty section. The camera is too far away, and you just jumped right into the middle of things, and then at this point, he's going to make you into a bloody stain. And, you know, like, this isn't so bad. You know, you kind of go, you mash a button, you go, like, yeah, this dude is so freaking strong. Like, I know ants can carry like 50 times their own body weight, but this is way more than 50%. And to be fair, Kratos did kind of become the god of war after the first game, so he is strong as fuck, but like, And here you're hanging, and there will be enemies waiting for you. And like hanging combat is very bare bones. So, you just slash at them, and just be careful. You can mess this up if you're too close to the enemy. So you have to watch yourself. And we're about to come up on a pretty hard section, though not soon, but kind of soon. And I have to mention a couple things. For one, I have to mention... I forgot what I was going to mention, but I do have to mention some important YouTubers. So, first, the Combo Spartan. The Combo Spartan just is absolutely cracked at doing combos. So, watch his videos to see some truly insane God of War combos. Like, I can't do those combos. I'm sorry. At least not now. Maybe in the future I'll do some sick combos. And here we have some enemies, and just be careful. They can clip you, they can grab you, so just kind of play it safe with a tackle, or do some combos with the Hades weapon, but make sure they all die. And then once they all die, like a big enemy shows up, and that big enemy also summons some more goons. And thankfully I'm kind of glad that big enemy summons goons, because I can use the goons against that big enemy and just kind of tackle that enemy. And they're going to be showing up in a pretty disgusting fashion. Like, I mean, that his whole shoulder's going to tear apart. I'm just thinking about that happening to me, and that should never happen to me. I should never have that wound. That is horrible. That is a horrible thing to go through. And the thing that sucks the most about this part is that big guy is fast. There just comes a point where he just starts zoning in on your position. So I'll be dodging, trying to get the next enemy, and then he'll just start running at me like that. No. There's one part that's really stressful, and also has really big swinging attacks. So you have to dodge the enemies, you have to dodge the big guy. Okay, there's one part in particular that I really that's so scary. I'm dodging, he's going all after me ah! Another YouTuber I have to mention is one called Extreme Gameplays, and the reason they're awesome. Okay, by the way, once you get to this point where you can do the QTE attack with this guy, the fight's pretty much over. I mean, there's one part that you could mess up, but if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't mess it up. I'll mention that part once we get there, but once you reach this part, you're pretty much safe. All your trials and tribulations are pretty much over. If you mess up the next part, you will feel suicidal, because you really should not mess up the next part. And to be fair, I get really close to messing up the next part, but I don't mess it up. There's some QTEs, there's the next part, which I keep saying next part. Okay, I'll just talk about it when we get there. We're gonna get there very soon. So what's important about Extreme Gameplays is that they actually dedicated a full video to talking about advanced God of War 3 tech. So if you're wondering how to do more advanced gameplay, he has a full video tutorial where he specifically talks about how to do certain techniques. There's one technique called the Nemesis Barrage, which is super useful, and I watched it and it was just very nice to see. However, I will not be using it in this video because I have a skill issue, but it is an insanely useful technique. Anyways, this is the part that you could mess up. What you have to do is just slide down, and whenever you get to these points, kind of dodge it, slide down. And I almost mess up here because you have to kill this guy before messing out, and I thought 2 hits would kill him, but no, it's 3 hits. See, that thing almost touched me, and as that thing touches you, you immediately fail. And if I fail that, then I had to redo the entire fight over again. But thankfully I did not fail that part once. I got it on my first try. Very nice. I'm telling you, this fight also took me 3 to 4 days, though thankfully on the final day where I actually got my attempt, I got it on the first try. I just kind of woke up, I went, I played it, and I did it on my first try. So yeah, very, very nice. So yeah, from here on out, it's just gonna be a lot of formalities. We're gonna see Kratos kill Cronos, but there's no real skill involved with the rest of this fight. We're just gonna kill Cronos, and ooh, that is brutal. Just intestines and all that. How can an ant do that? Kratos is the size of an ant. I know fire ants will cause amazing pain to grown men and grown women. We'll cry if an ant, a bullet ant, fire ant, if those sting us, those will cause tears. But can they do that? I mean, I'm telling you, it's crazy how much damage Kratos is doing to Cronos here. It's just completely unrealistic, bro. I mean, to be fair, Cronos is also completely chained up, so he's not free to do stuff. And yeah, they go, and we're stabbing it, and then boom, go for the final touch. And we get to this point where Cronos could just eat him again, though to be fair, Cronos did just try to eat him, and that didn't go so well for him. So if Cronos tries to eat him again, then the same thing's just gonna happen again. But yeah. So let me keep talking about YouTubers. So yeah, the Extreme Gameplays, go watch their channel and go watch that tutorial to see some of the sick things you can do with God of War 3's combat, because it gets extensive. It gets really, really extensive. So another YouTuber is I don't know how to pronounce this name. I think it's like IX Bright, like X Bright. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but this YouTuber made a compilation kind of in the style of my compilations, where it's just like one big video with all the boss fights in them. Though he did split his video into 2 parts. Part 1 and part 2, and it's like he's like the only person who's done like a big video like that of like no damage. Though I kind of have to call them out because their video technically isn't no damage. Because like at one point in both videos, he takes damage. You know, he takes like a little nipple of damage, but it is damage, so you can't really call the video no damage. The video at this point is now some damage, but I'm still thankful for their video because the strategies they used for like combating these boss fights was still really useful, and I learned a lot from it. But, you know, it's sad. Like, I mean, I'm not mad at them for doing that. I mean, like, it does kind of suck that their video isn't completely no damage. But, like, I mean, I've kind of succumbed to that. You know, sometimes you get so hooked on a boss fight, you know, you kind of get clipped in a weird way. And you know, whatever, I'm just going to call it some damage. I'm just going to deal with it, you know, like, whatever. Like, I've done that before. I don't want to do that these days, but, like, I have done that before. So I understand the feeling, but the video technically isn't no damage. Now my video, I mean, unless I'm wrong, my video is completely no damage, so I'll just say that up front. And here, we're fighting the Scorpion. This is a very annoying fight, though I don't think it's as annoying as some of the previous fights, because, I mean, at least this fight is brief, you know? It doesn't last forever. Like, I mean, this fight is immediately difficult, while the other fights, they last like 10, 11 minutes, and it's just like a constant barrage of difficulty. While here, this fight's like just like 4 or 5 minutes, and it's just like, I mean, that's still lengthy. That's still like a good, like, dedicated time to fight a boss fight, but at least it's not as intense as some of the other fights. So yeah, we're going to be using these lion punching things exclusively for this entire fight, and there's many strategies here. And the first thing is, this fight has 2 phases, but in order to make the second phase easier, we're going to need to make every single part of this Scorpion's body red. So it's going to be like the Kiwami 2 like heat auras. We're going to make every single part of this thing red, though they weren't originally red, they were all blue, but see, like, originally, you know, if you're just playing this fight in a kind of simple way, you just break 3 of the legs without thinking. But I'm going to be specific in the way I tackle this fight, and I'm going to make 3 of the, you know, legs red, and the rest of the legs I'm going to break. Because once we reach the second phase, instead of having to, like, you know, break the last 3 legs and, like, having them be blue and, you know, having it be, like, you know, longer to break them, they're already going to be red. So they're already going to be weakened, and it's going to be easier to break them, because that second phase can get real tricky with how many enemies spawn, with some of the new attacks the Scorpion gets. Like, this Scorpion becomes much faster at attacking, so this is just the way to go. And also, for dealing with like the crowd of like tiny scorpions, which the big scorpion spawns, the way I like to do it is I like to do kind of like a light attack, then heavy attack with like the, you know, the punching lion things. However, it's also a game of positioning, because, you know, the heavy attacks come out very slow, so you want to get a lot of distance between the scorpions. You know, like, the light attack isn't going to hit the scorpions. You know, I think I might do this now. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Like, light attack, it doesn't hit the scorpions. The thing you want to hit the scorpions with is the heavy attacks. It's like an area of effect damage, and it also deals a ton of damage. So, you know, that's kind of the way to deal with it. And then, like, once we actually knock the scorpion down, we're going to spam magic. So have a full magic bar when you get to this point, because then we just spam magic. Bing, boom, boom, boom. Also, I have this weapon, you know, the lion like punching things, fully upgraded to level 5 by this point, so like that's what I'm dealing with. And also my magic is like fully maxed out. Like, there's like chests you can collect around the world, and like you can miss them sometimes, so you know, you may not have your magic fully maxed out, but be sure to have it fully maxed out, because, you know, you spend half of it on the first phase here just like to get the big QTE, and then you're going to spend the rest of it in the second phase. So just keep that in mind. And there was something I wanted to mention here, I don't know what. And yeah, there's this little phase where a bunch of scorpions spawn in, so that's a little tricky to deal with. And then, like, you know, this scorpion, you have to avoid the attack. This scorpion also has an attack like in Cronos' case. And yeah, that little like tail slam, that tail slam is really hard to avoid. Like, it's stupid fast. And in the second phase, it gets even faster, so you have to be even more perfect with your dodges for that. You know, just you always have to keep that tail whip in mind. And also, this boss has a really annoying move where, you know, it kind of swipes its claw at you and it grabs you. It doesn't deal damage, it just wastes your time. However, it's inconsistent, because sometimes he'll grab you and not deal damage, but other times it will actually damage you. And I don't know what the difference is, because I swear it's the same exact attack, but sometimes it won't damage you, and sometimes it will damage you. Like, you know, which one is it? You know, when a boss fight is inconsistent, you know, it has like inconsistent parts to its fight, it's usually for the worse. And yeah, I got really lucky here with just destroying everything, and now we can just go full on with the boss fight. And like, this next phase, you could mess it up, but like, if you mess it up, it's pretty depressing because at this point you do get a checkpoint. So yeah, this is another boss fight for the most part, for like most of this fight, it actually forces you to fight the entire thing in one go. But once you reach this point, you get a checkpoint because it's like a gimmicky section. If you die here, it's just kind of sad, you know, it'd be sad to like repeat everything else. But yeah, like for everything before this point, you actually have to do that all in one go, and I like that. You know, I like when a boss fight is like, you know, a fully length boss fight. I mean, like, I guess like these checkpoints in between the fight is useful for new players, but like I'm playing on the hardest difficulty. I think by this point, you know, like we're kind of used to the game because you actually have to beat like, you know, the previous hardest difficulty to unlock the actual hardest difficulty here. So, you know, like I'm familiar here. I've had some experience with the game, you know, like I can afford, you know, some checkpoints which aren't like fully like that. And here Pandora just got knocked to the side, and we know we're going to beat up Zeus really hard. I love that little musical sting, the dun 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 dun, just super useful. Also have to mention another YouTuber, Game Breaker God, because their no damage of Zeus was super useful for my run. Like I wouldn't even know about this little like air grab without like that channel. And pretty much like the way it would ideally work, even though it's not really working right now, is that I would start the fight off the same, you know, I would kind of run behind him, jump up, grab him, and then I would do like the launcher attack, and then I would doing the launcher attack will allow me to grab him over and over, but for some reason he's just being kind of difficult at first here. And that attack I did right there, the way you do it is by pretty much like pressing the punch button but then holding it down. And what you do when you hold it down is if you land that second attack, it will lead to you like doing the ding 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 boom attack. It doesn't always land because sometimes Zeus will block it. Anyways, here's the Game Breaker God strategy, you know, fully working. And you know, you need to have really good timing with that, or sometimes Zeus will just block it. And when he blocks it, I guess we're just gonna have a more normal fight. So yeah, whenever he goes up like that, you know, you kind of jump up, grab him, and then and sometimes he does that. I don't know, it was a really weird thing he did there, but I reacted pretty well to it. And then boom, we're done with the first phase. And you know, sometimes he'll teleport, but we're done with the first phase. We can kind of go from there, because in the second phase we're not going to be able to do that, so we're going to have to go for more ground strategies, because whenever he goes up in the air in the second phase, it's too dangerous to try to like go up and grab him. Actually, I'm not sure about that. Hold on, let me double check that. Okay, so I didn't really double check anything. Instead, I just got myself a little horchata drink. I got it right here with me. Got some little ASMR right there. And yeah, I'm just going to spam him with magic, though. It's not really good to spam him with magic here. I mean, like, it's good, it's dealing damage, but I'm gonna need my magic for the next couple phases. Oh, actually, to be fair, with the way I tackle the next couple phases, I actually never use magic, but I actually, like, there's like 3 sections to Zeus's fight. Well, technically 4, but like the 4th one is more like a cinematic thing. You know how in like the final boss of like the Spider-Man game, like the final section is just like a cinematic thing, it's not really gameplay? Well, it's the same deal here with like the final phase of like the God of War 3 here. I guess all the Sony games just kind of suffer from that, you know, little cinematic section, which isn't really gameplay, but it's like cool. So what was I going with here? So yeah, I'm going for like more normal strategies. I'm trying to like land the one attack where it goes ding 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 ding, and look at it, I landed it. So it is possible to land it in the second phase. It's just a little harder because he's just constantly blocking. Because you know, you land like 2 hits and then he just blocks everything else. You know, like, you can go a little insane with like air combos, which I don't do. But you know what? I manage. I deal with it. I parry his attacks. You know, you can parry that big first punch he does. You can parry that lightning attack he does. Though that lightning attack is a little harder to parry because sometimes you just get so engaged with like beating his ass that you don't realize that he's doing the little hand signal for doing the lightning attack. So, you know, with the big punch, you know, he like arcs his shoulder back, so it's a little easier to tell. And then we're done with the fight right there. Ain't that nice? So there's a lot of things I want to mention on my outline which I haven't mentioned yet, and there's probably something I needed to mention which I haven't mentioned yet. I hope my strategies have been like self-explanatory enough, because you know, things get crazy. But yeah, for the second and third phase, I actually redid this fight, you know, not no damage but no magic, just so I would have magic in the next phase. So you're gonna why did that piece of the Reed kill her boob specifically? Like, I'm telling you, these games can be so immature. Like, they just had to kill the boob. They choreographed this scene so that the boob will get freaking destroyed. And also, like, I like the way Kratos runs in this scene, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fully mention why I hate Pandora, but I just hate her. Like, she is such a lame character. Like, honestly, the climax of this game kind of falls flat for me. But one thing I want to mention is that Zeus has got to be one of the greatest instigators of all time, because he has no reason to say any of this shit. He just fucks himself over with all these insults. And also, I just got to shout out Kratos' freaking scream in this scene. Like, you got to listen to this.
Don't listen to her, Kratos. For once in your pathetic life, don't fail. Don't fail her like you failed your family.
So here we're going to come up on the second phase, and the second phase is kind of a fake phase. You know, you kind of have to just kind of dance with him for a bit before like a cutscene happens, and then like it transitions you to the actual fight. You know, you don't really do much here. I think it's just kind of a bit of nostalgia for God of War 2, because I think he kind of fights like he does in God of War 2. Maybe. I haven't played that game in a while, but it does seem like more familiar with like the way he dances in God of War 2 than like the way he dances in, you know, in the first or third phase. Because in the first phase it's kind of like side-scrolling and he kind of does different things, while in the third phase he gets a bunch of new moves. I mean, he also has these moves, but he has a lot of new moves. So the only thing to keep in mind about this phase is you really don't want him to shoot the lightning bolts. And one way to make sure he doesn't shoot lightning bolts, this also works for the third phase by the way, is just to hammer him with arrows from far away. If he blocks it and then starts dodging and tries to, like, you know, tackle you, then you're doing a good job. See, he'll start shooting the lightning bolts, you know, when he does like the big punching attack he does, where he does like a big shoulder. But if you can keep baiting him into doing this dash, see, whenever he does that, like, if you don't attack him immediately after that with arrows or just your physical attacks, he will start shooting lightning bolts at you. And the reason you don't want him shooting lightning bolts at you is because it's really, really annoying. See, that they come by so fast, you know, they come out so fast, like, I hate it. So if you can avoid that, you know, all the merrier. And that strategy also works in the third phase, just keep that in mind. So I wanted to mention something else. Oh yeah, if you upgrade your magic and like health too much, the chests don't fully heal your magic and health, which I think sucks. Like, if I open a health or magic chest, it should fully heal me. So like, it only heals you like halfway if you're like fully upgraded. So it's just like, dude, that sucks. Come on, like, get out of here. Also, yeah, I think the one thing I hate about Pandora is that one stupid ass line she has where it's like, hope is what makes us strong. I actually put it in the video so you know exactly what I'm talking about. They repeat that shit 3 times, but the thing is, that's a line she said like fucking 20 minutes ago from when this game, from like when she got introduced, or like when you were hanging out with her, or from this moment. I don't know how to explain it, but like that happened like not so long ago. So they're like hyping it up like it's some big hype line, but she said it like 20 minutes ago, you know, like not even that long ago. And they repeated 3 times. Like, oh, did you miss it? Did you set the line? Like, no, I didn't miss it. That happened like a weekend ago. This game's like 8 hours, okay? Like, that has no significance. Anyways, I have to shout out another important YouTuber for their amazing strat for this phase of the Zeus fight. And that YouTuber is Shinobier, if that's how you pronounce it. And it's just like, their channel link is in the description, because their strategy is pretty much you do this attack with the Blades of Exile, then you jump up, you grab him, or if he gets too far away, you kind of do like a block and grab to kind of zip up to him. And sometimes he'll kind of dodge away from you and do like the big stompy electric attack, but you can kind of just jump over that and just keep repeating that. It's such a simple strategy. Like, this fight is such a pain in the ass if you don't do this strategy. Like, I don't know where I would be if I didn't do this strategy, because I tell you, this video would not be released right now if I didn't do this strategy. Like, I mean, it's cheesy as hell, but this fight gets too wicked for me. Like, all the clones are just a pain in the ass. So you know what? Boom, bam, I'm punching you to the ground. That's just how it's gonna be. Oh yeah, so one thing you gotta keep in mind is that this launch move only works when he's not like attacking you. So one good time to do the launch move is, you know, like, he has this attack where, like, you know, he preps his tackle and you can block his tackle, because whenever he like does that tackle, he summons out a clone, and sometimes that clone materializes and sometimes that clone just goes away. And here, like, once we enter this phase of the fight, he has a clone, and I kind of want to kill that clone. And like, one good way to kill that clone is by juggling that clone and kind of doing the same thing I've been doing to Zeus before. See, whenever he does that attack, like, he's vulnerable, and you can kind of do the launch move, and you can grab him, you know, throw him around, and yeah, there, boom, bam, pow. Very nice. So like, that's one move you want to bait out, and it's a very good move to bait out because he's constantly doing it. So whenever he does that move, it's an easy juggle. And there are other moves which you can juggle him with, but like, this move is like the best one to like exploit. And this fight's about to be over because I've just been slamming his health bar like so much. So like, you know, it's crazy because this fight usually lasts like 4 to 5 minutes, but here I beat it like in about 2 minutes. So it's just like this strategy goes insane. And the thing is, Shinobi did it with 0 upgrades. I'm doing this strategy with all the upgrades. So yeah, I did it faster because my weapon deals more damage. So I'm just telling you, it goes insane. But yeah, I think the reason I'm so mad about that Pandora line is because like the game really thinks like it ate with that line. Like they do like 2 flashbacks to that line, and there's like a really epic flashback. You know, they have like the cool art style, and it's like, oh, it's so epic. But that's such a basic bitch line. A 12-year-old could write that. There's an 11-year-old on TikTok writing poetry who has written better shit than that. Like, you know, we've built up like this game, you know, we're so fucking pissed, we're slaughtering all the gods, it's like this big Greek epic, and this is how it ends with a line like that? It's about hope, it's about fear, shut the fuck up! Like, I don't know, the climax of this game in general just, it kind of falls flat after all the epic stuff you've been doing, because you kind of just return to like the Daedalus boxes, if that's how you pronounce his name. Like, we've already been here. You return to like the Flame of Olympus, you know, we've already been here. And, you know, we return to, like, Gaia's heart, which we've also already been there, you know, like, it kind of feels underwhelming in a way. Like, after Cronos, like, the boss fights are just a Scorpion and Zeus. So it's just kind of like, eh. So, yeah, like, all the technical gameplay stuff is pretty much over. From here on out, it's just story. And here, the cutscene's gonna play. Look at this stupid shit. I hate this so much. This fills me with such a fucking rage and anger. I'm like 25% as angry as Kratos, and given how angry Kratos is, like, you should know how angry I am about that dumbass line. Like, really? This is how we're gonna end things? And to be fair, I don't even hate this ending. Like, hell, we killed Zeus, and we killed Zeus in a freaking epic ass way. This arena looks awesome, and like, you know, the way we beat up Zeus is just so enraging. You know, like, I'm disappointed, but I'm also not disappointed by it. Like, because God of War 3 is like too awesome. You feel me? It's a strange feeling, because like I never really thought the God of War games had great stories. Like, I mean, I've only played the trilogy and the one PSP game, and like my opinion, like, I mean, from when I played them, is that the first game has the best story. You know, it's like the coolest one, and then like the second game got a little dumb, and this game got a little dumber. And like, to be fair, I think most of my frustrations with this one are just like this ending portion, like the last hour or so is just kind of like whatever. It's like, eh. So there's some things I wanted to mention on my outline, which I have not mentioned yet. So yeah, the final battle with like the enemies in like the room with like Daedalus in it. Wait, Daedalus, the guy who made the wings for Icarus. That fight is fucking insane. It goes on forever, but like I'm also sure that there was way worse stuff in like the first and second game. But I still had to mention that that fight was insane. It took me a while to beat that fight because I wasn't even trying to no damage. I was trying to beat it. And like I'm 100% sure that like the first and second game have worse parts. So like once I return to no damage those games boss fights, like I'm gonna have to beat up those enemy encounters to get to the boss fights. And like since those encounters I'm pretty sure are harder than like the hardest one in the third game, that's gonna be tough. I'll just say that is gonna be tough. Also, I just have to mention like those enemies with like the spears and like the shields that can only be broken with like the Hercules weapon attack, they attack way too fucking fast. Like, you know, the only way you can break those shields is with the Hercules weapon, but like the Hercules weapon has slow swings and their spears attack fast as fuck out of nowhere, especially when they're in a huge group, because you'll be taking out one guy, maybe that one guy is stunned, but the guy to his left isn't, and he just fucking stabs you. I hate it. I despise those guys so much. It's just because they get put into the most annoying boss fights. Because, you know, by themselves they're not all that bad, but when they're paired with an enemy that's actually difficult, they're an absolute chore, especially if you don't have magic. Just so yeah, I don't know if there was anything else I wanted to mention. I think I've mentioned everything on my outline. You know, I've kind of gone over my thoughts on the game. I really like this one. This probably is my favorite of the trilogy, just because like it is the most fun to play. Like, the gameplay is the most solid. I mean, like, some people say God of War 2 is better, but honestly, like, I mean, I don't know if I agree with that, because I just find the weapons more fun here, but I also have to replay God of War 2. So, for more nuance on those takes, I will be tackling God of War 2 in the future. Maybe not so soon, because I am actually planning on no damaging another game before God of War 2. But after I no damage that game, I may try out God of War 2, but in order to record God of War 2, I need to buy an HDMI splitter. So yeah, hey, I'm on the edge of my seat here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all then.